Imagine a stormy night in the heart of the city, where the rain pounded against the windows of a towering skyscraper like angry fists demanding justice. At the top floor in a lavish office that screamed power and isolation, sat Alexander Voss, the millionaire CEO of Voss Industries, a man whose empire was built on ruthless decisions and unbreakable ambition. He was alone, staring at financial reports that promised even more wealth, when a faint knock echoed through the door. It was so soft, so out of place in his world of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals that he almost dismissed it as the wind. But then it came again, persistent, desperate. He opened the door and there stood a little girl no more than 8 years old, drenched from head to toe, her eyes wide with terror and tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "They hurt my mom," she whispered, her voice trembling like a leaf in the gale. "She's dying." Alexander stared in shock, his world tilting on its axis. What followed would change everything he thought he knew about power, compassion, and the fragile threads that connect us all. Hey everyone, if that hook grabbed you, and I know it did, hit that like button right now to show some love for stories that touch the heart. And if you haven't subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another tale of hope, heartbreak, and humanity. Your support keeps these stories coming, and trust me, this one's going to stay with you long after it's over. Now let's dive into the full story. Alexander Voss wasn't always the cold, calculating tycoon the world saw him as. Born in a small town to hardworking parents, he had clawed his way up from nothing, building Voss Industries into a conglomerate that dominated manufacturing from chemicals to machinery. But success came at a cost: long hours, broken relationships, and a heart that had grown armored against emotion. His wife had left him years ago, taking their son with her, accusing him of loving his empire more than his family. He hadn't argued. Deep down, he knew she was right. Now at 52, he lived in a penthouse that felt more like a museum than a home, surrounded by luxury but starved of connection. That night, as the little girl stood shivering in his doorway, Alexander's first instinct was to call security. Who was this child? How had she gotten past the guards in the lobby? But something in her eyes stopped him, a raw, unfiltered plea that pierced through his defenses. Her name was Lily, she said, and her mom was Emma, a single mother who worked in one of the factories on the outskirts of town. "They hurt her," Lily repeated, her small hands clutching a crumpled photo of a woman with kind eyes and a weary smile. "The bad men at the big building, the smoke and the chemicals, it made her sick. Now she's in the hospital and the doctors say she might not wake up." Alexander felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain seeping into his office. Voss Industries owned several factories in that area, and rumors had circulated for years about safety violations, leaks of toxic chemicals, inadequate protective gear for workers. He dismissed them as union propaganda, signing off on reports that assured him everything was compliant. But looking at Lily, he couldn't ignore the possibility. "Come inside," he said gruffly, leading her to a chair by the fireplace. He wrapped her in his coat, the one his ex-wife had given him on their last anniversary, and called for hot chocolate from the night staff. As Lily sipped it, her story poured out like the storm outside. Emma had been a line worker at the chemical plant for 5 years, ever since her husband died in a car accident, leaving her to raise Lily alone. The pay was decent, but the conditions were harsh: fumes that burned the throat, spills that weren't cleaned up properly, and management that turned a blind eye to complaints. A few months ago, there had been an incident, a pipe burst, releasing a cloud of hazardous vapors. Emma had been exposed the worst, inhaling the toxins while helping her coworkers escape. At first, it was just coughing, fatigue. Then the diagnosis: acute chemical poisoning leading to organ failure. The hospital bills were mounting, and without insurance cut by the company to save costs, Emma's life hung by a thread. "The doctors say she needs special medicine," Lily said, her voice breaking. "But we can't afford it, and the bad men said it's not their fault." Alexander's mind raced. He knew the plant manager, a loyal underling who'd assured him the incident was minor. But now doubt crept in. He picked up the phone and dialed his assistant, demanding files on the factory incident. While waiting, he talked to Lily, learning about her life, the tiny apartment they shared, the bedtime stories Emma read every night, the dreams Lily had of becoming a doctor to help people like her mom. It was all so ordinary, so human, and it stirred something in Alexander he thought long dead: empathy. When the files arrived via email, he scanned them quickly. Buried in the fine print were admissions of negligence, cost-cutting measures that skipped safety protocols. His signature was on the approval. Guilt hit him like a freight train. The next morning, Alexander drove Lily back to the hospital, her small hand in his as they navigated the sterile halls. Emma lay in the ICU, hooked to machines that beeped ominously, her face pale and drawn. Lily climbed onto the bed, whispering, "Mommy, I found help. This man is going to fix it." Alexander met with the doctors, learning the grim prognosis. Without an experimental treatment costing hundreds of thousands, Emma wouldn't survive the week. He wrote a check on the spot, covering everything, but it felt hollow. Money couldn't erase the pain his decisions had caused. As days turned into weeks, Alexander found himself drawn into their world. He visited the hospital daily, bringing toys for Lily and flowers for Emma, who slowly began to respond to treatment, but challenges loomed large. The media caught wind of the story, a little girl confronting a CEO, and it exploded. Protests erupted outside Voss Industries demanding accountability for worker safety. Shareholders panicked, stocks dipped. Alexander's board pressured him to deny involvement, to sue for defamation. It's bad PR, they said, cut ties with the family. But Alexander couldn't. For the first time, he saw the human cost of his empire. Internally, he battled his own demons. Memories of his own mother, who had died young from overwork in a factory not unlike his own, resurfaced. He'd vowed to escape that life, but in doing so, he'd perpetuated the cycle. One night, alone in his office, he broke down, tears streaming as he confessed to his empty room. The next day, he called a press conference. "I take full responsibility," he announced to flashing cameras. Voss Industries failed its workers. "We're implementing immediate reforms, better safety gear, full health coverage, and an independent audit." The crowd murmured in surprise, but it wasn't enough for Alexander. He visited the factory personally, firing the negligent manager and promoting a whistleblower who tried to warn him. Meanwhile, Emma's recovery was a roller coaster. There were setbacks, fever spikes, organ stress that tested everyone's resolve. Lily, staying with a neighbor, would call Alexander in tears, begging him to make mommy better. He hired a tutor for her, ensuring she didn't fall behind in school, and shared stories of his own childhood to comfort her. A bond formed, unlikely and profound. Emma, awakening gradually, was wary at first. "Why are you helping us?" she asked weakly one afternoon. Alexander hesitated, then told the truth. "Because I see my mistakes in your pain, and because your daughter reminded me what it means to fight for someone you love." But the road wasn't smooth. A lawsuit from former workers surfaced, naming Alexander personally. His lawyers advised settling quietly, but he insisted on facing it head-on, testifying about the changes he'd made. The trial was grueling, with testimonies from families shattered by similar incidents. Alexander listened, absorbing the anger, vowing internally to make amends. In a twist, Emma testified on his behalf, speaking of his genuine remorse and the life he'd saved. The judge ruled in favor of compensation, but praised Alexander's reforms as a model for corporate responsibility. As Emma grew stronger, discharged from the hospital with a clean bill of health, the trio celebrated with a simple picnic in the park, something Alexander hadn't done in decades. Lily laughed freely, her innocence restored, while Emma and Alexander shared quiet conversations about second chances. He offered her a job in the company's new safety division, which she accepted, bringing her first-hand experience to prevent future tragedies. Yet the biggest challenge came from within. Alexander's son, estranged for years, reached out after seeing the news. "Dad, is this really you?" he asked over the phone. Their reunion was tearful, bridges rebuilt over shared regrets. Alexander realized that true wealth wasn't in bank accounts but in relationships mended and lives touched. Months later, as the storm of scandal subsided, Voss Industries thrived under a new ethos of ethics over profit. Alexander stepped down as CEO, founding a foundation for worker rights, with Emma as co-director and Lily as the honorary inspiration. The little girl who knocked on his door had knocked down walls he didn't know existed. And so, in the end, what started as a desperate plea became a beacon of hope. Remember, friends, one act of courage can change the world, whether it's a child's knock or a tycoon's awakening. If this story moved you like I know it did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tales that remind us of our shared humanity. Share your own stories of kindness in the comments below. Until next time, keep believing in second chances. The rain had finally stopped that fateful night, but for Alexander Voss, the real storm was just beginning. As he sat with Lily in his office, waiting for the hot chocolate to arrive, he couldn't shake the image of her tiny frame against the vastness of his corporate kingdom. She fidgeted with the photo of her mom, tracing Emma's face with her finger as if willing her to come alive. "Mommy works so hard," Lily said softly. "She makes sure I have food and clothes even when she's tired. But now she's all alone in that cold room with beeps and tubes." Alexander's throat tightened. He remembered his own childhood, watching his mother come home exhausted from the mill, her hands calloused and her spirit dimmed. He'd promised himself he'd never let that happen to anyone he cared about, but here he was, complicit in the suffering of strangers who were just like her. When the assistant brought the drink, Lily sipped it gratefully, her eyes lighting up for a moment at the warmth. Alexander used the time to dig deeper into the files. What he found horrified him: emails from supervisors downplaying the chemical leak, budget cuts that eliminated safety training, and even a memo he'd signed authorizing the use of cheaper, riskier materials to boost quarterly profits. It was all there in black and white. His ambition had poisoned lives. "Lily," he said gently, "tell me more about your mom. What does she like? What makes her happy?" The girl perked up, describing Emma's love for baking cookies on Sundays, reading fairy tales, and dreaming of taking Lily to the beach one day. Simple joys worlds away from Alexander's life of private jets and gala dinners. Deciding to act, Alexander arranged for a car to take them to the hospital immediately, despite the late hour. The drive was silent at first, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windows. Lily leaned against him, exhausted, and he felt an unfamiliar protectiveness surge through him. At the hospital, the night nurse eyed them suspiciously, a disheveled millionaire and a soaked child, but allowed them in. Emma's room was dim, the only light from the monitors casting eerie shadows. Lily rushed to her side, climbing carefully onto the bed. "Mommy, wake up, I brought a friend." Emma didn't stir, her breathing shallow under the oxygen mask. Alexander spoke with the on-call doctor in the hallway, learning the details. The toxins had damaged her lungs and kidneys irreparably without intervention. The treatment involved a rare drug cocktail imported and exorbitantly priced, plus ongoing dialysis. "She's a fighter," the doctor said, "but time is critical." Alexander didn't hesitate. "Send me the bill, all of it." But as he watched Lily hold her mother's hand, he knew money was just the start. He needed to fix the root cause. The following days blurred into a whirlwind. Alexander canceled meetings, delegating to his VP, and focused on the family. He hired a private nurse for Emma and arranged for Lily to stay in a nearby hotel suite with a caregiver, but the girl insisted on being at the hospital. "I can't leave her," she said stubbornly. To distract her, Alexander brought board games and books, sitting awkwardly on the floor as they played. Through these moments, he learned about their struggles. Emma's late husband had been a mechanic, killed in a hit-and-run, leaving debts that forced her into the factory job. No family to help, just each other. Alexander shared bits of his story too, his rise from poverty, the loneliness at the top. "I thought success meant never needing anyone," he admitted. Lily looked at him wisely beyond her years. "Mommy says success is having someone to share it with." News leaked as it always does. A reporter spotted Alexander at the hospital, and by morning headlines screamed, "CEO's secret mercy mission, millionaire saves dying worker." The board called an emergency meeting. "This could ruin us," the chairman barked. "Admit nothing, spin it as charity." Alexander refused. "We're owning this, schedule audits for all plants." Protests grew, workers sharing stories of ignored complaints. One evening, a group confronted him outside the hospital, signs reading "Voss kills." He faced them, listening without defense. "You're right," he said, "and I'm changing it." Emma's condition worsened before improving. An infection set in, spiking her fever to dangerous levels. Doctors rushed in, Lily sobbing in Alexander's arms. "Don't let her go," she begged. He held her tight, whispering promises he hoped he could keep. That night he stayed vigil, reflecting on his life. His ex-wife's words echoed, "You're building walls, Alex, not bridges." For the first time he called her, apologizing for the past. "I've met someone who showed me what matters," he said, telling her about Lily. Miraculously, Emma pulled through the crisis. As she regained consciousness, her first words were for Lily. Mother and daughter reunited in tears, Alexander stepping back to give them space. But Emma beckoned him. "Thank you," she whispered. "But why?" He explained everything, the guilt, the awakening. "Your daughter saved more than you, she saved me." Reforms at Voss Industries rolled out swiftly. New protocols, higher wages, anonymous reporting lines. Stocks rebounded as public opinion shifted, praising the reformed CEO. The lawsuit proceeded, but Alexander settled generously, establishing funds for affected families. Emma, fully recovered, joined the team, her insights invaluable. In time, Alexander's family healed too. His son visited, bonds reforming over dinners with Emma and Lily. The little girl who'd knocked in desperation had opened doors to redemption. Years later, at Lily's high school graduation, Alexander beamed like a proud father. Emma, now his partner in life and work, squeezed his hand. The inspiring message, no one is beyond change. Kindness ripples, healing wounds we never knew we carried. So viewers, carry that forward, be the knock that changes a heart. Like, subscribe, and let's spread more hope together.